Sam Darnold, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and the Seattle Seahawks host Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC Championship game. The winner, they will be moving on to play in the Super Bowl. I don't think we could get a better matchup for the NFC title game. If you're a fan of another team in the NFC and they were knocked out of the postseason, then I feel for you. You would obviously rather have them play. But if you're just a pure football fan, this is the matchup that the pure football fans want. Because there's really, I don't believe any questioning that these are the best two teams in the NFC. They've proved that throughout the season. And then with their play in the playoffs, the Rams, they went to Carolina and pulled out that win. They beat the Chicago Bears when it looked like all odds were stacked against them. Chicago crosses midfield. All they need is a field goal, and Kam Curl comes up with the biggest play of the Rams season, gets that interception, the ball back into Stafford's hands, and that was all she wrote. Harrison Mevis with the game-winning 42-yard field goal. For San Francisco, you might say, oh, they were the team that was closer to getting the 1 seed than LA. Sure, technically they were. They were to win an in-game. But the reason why this game is in Seattle is because of that Thursday night win, the 16-point comeback from the Seahawks, taking it away from the Rams. Otherwise, this game, it would be at SoFi Stadium. And Seattle, who's favored by 1.5, there's no question that the Rams, they would be the favorites if this game was in Los Angeles. So that's what wound up costing the Rams home field, was that loss to Seattle on that Thursday night game. I personally believe that was the best game of the season. Some people would argue that the Bears-Niners Sunday night game, week 17, or the Rams-Bears game in the divisional round. Look, there's been a heck of a lot of great football games, but I kind of think that Thursday night game, just because of what was at stake, what was on the line, and now getting this matchup and how it decides home field advantage for Seattle. And if you're a Ram fan, you understand that. I was at the game at Soldier Field in Chicago. The snow started coming down. If you were there, if you're a Ram fan and you made the trip out there, started snowing about 90 minutes before kickoff, and it snowed through the entire night there. I wound up flying out Monday morning, and it was a complete whiteout out there on the way to the airport at O'Hare. It was snowy conditions, and that was exactly what the Rams didn't want. If you're a person that romanticizes football, then it was perfect for you to experience that. Like myself, couldn't have asked for anything more. For the scenery, the elements made it feel like it was walking to Disneyland. I don't think there's a lot of experiences in life, to be honest, where it makes you feel like a little kid again. But I legitimately felt like I was 5, 6 years old experiencing sports or football for the very first time and falling in love with it. It just was a moment falling in love with the sport again, and to get that kind of game and those elements. And then on the flip side of that, not an overtime game, not a game where you're having a heart attack. Seattle Seahawks won the game in 15 seconds. Rashid Shaheed, he comes up with another incredible play on special teams. The opening kickoff return for a touchdown, and Seattle doesn't look back. The 4th down and 1 stuffing of Christian McCaffrey. And then the next possession, after they get the field goal, they've got Darnold rolling to his left, hitting Smith-Njigba, 17-0. It just felt like Seattle was going to steamroll them. And that's exactly what they did. They were, without a doubt, the superior team on the Saturday night game, deciding the number 1 seed. And then in this one, it just felt like Seattle flexed. And unless you're a Seahawks fan, you thought that was the most complete win of the season. And Mike McDonald said as much. But if you've followed Seattle throughout the year, they've had a lot of wins like that, where they drop that many points in a half, where the game is over within the first 20 minutes. That has been Seattle's brand. They have arguably been the most complete team. They're not like the New England Patriots with their wins against teams that you say that they're a little bit lesser. The Denver Broncos with all those 1-score wins. The Chicago Bears in the final 2 minutes. Or LA, for example, who has let a couple teams out of their grasp. And they almost did it with Chicago. 4th and 4. Caleb Williams turns his back and he's throwing a pass that's in the red zone, mind you, 51 air yards, and then that throw to Cole Kmet. I know every Rams fan across the country and the world for that matter, their hearts sank and they just could not believe their eyes, but their prayers were ultimately answered with the Caleb Williams interception. No one saw that coming. I thought that he would just use his legs and go get go win the game himself. So LA, give credit to their defense and holding that Chicago offense to 17 points. Seattle, their last two opponents have been the San Francisco 49ers, and banged up at that. You saw a Christian McCaffrey that sort of ran out of gas in that one. George Kittle, he, with his injury, you just feel for him and not being available and throughout the defense. But I said this during, I don't care if Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, as fresh as a daisy, every single guy. Throw back DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead. Throw those guys back on the Niners roster, and I still think the Seattle Seahawks win that game. You even put guys like maybe Hufanga or Dre Greenlaw. The way Seattle played last week in the divisional rounds against the 49ers was a team with their hair on fire. In my opinion, the most impressive performance since that Super Bowl win over the Denver Broncos, where it was emphatic from the very first snap of the game. It was over. It just felt like it was just a team. You're talking about a featherweight going up against a straight heavyweight, and there's just no chance. You got varsity playing against Frost Soft. There's just no shot for them, and that's exactly what it wound up being. The Rams have to deal with that ferocious Seattle pass rush, and even with only 2 sacks, it felt like they had a heck of a lot more pressure. And the way Seattle dominated this game on 3rd and 4th down, it was a little bit similar to the way the Rams held Chicago to those points, and they did extremely well on 3rd and 4th down, limiting them. Remember, the Bears crossed the ball past the 35 on each of their 4 possessions in the first half, and they only had 10 points to show for it. Los Angeles, they simply were outplayed for a lot of that game by metrics like yards, or simply in the rushing yards category, total yards overall. The Bears had 4 sacks. The Rams didn't have any, but the Rams had the takeaways, the 3 interceptions in some really crucial spots, and then key drops for Chicago. And for Los Angeles, when you're an experienced team, and that's what you sort of are falling back on this game. Look, LA still has the experience. They've been here. Stafford's a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Darnold, that was his first career playoff win this past week. So he's looking to build off of that. If there's a team that you have a bit more faith in, if they don't play to their ceiling, it's likely going to be Los Angeles. And I would understand the arguments for Seattle fans. They would feel like, look, we don't got to play at our ceiling to beat LA, because through the first 51, 52 minutes on Thursday night, you were nowhere near your ceiling against LA. And then you had just that straight onslaught coming back from the 16. Sam Darnold with a throw to Barner. Darnold marches then the length of the field in one of the most clutch, if not the most clutch drive of the entire season. And then the 2-point conversion that decided the game. And speaking of 2-point conversions, I know it was talked about for Chicago maybe going for 2. And I'm talking about that game a lot because it was the most recent opponent, and it was just a heck of a game. To be fair to Seattle fans, like, what do we need to say about the San Francisco wins? That those are the last 2 matchups. They were dominant. They were better in every single aspect of the game, a far superior team. Whereas the Rams, who just played this tighter game, there's a little bit more to try and pick apart. Whereas Seattle, where was there a flaw? Where was there a weakness on this team that you're like, that didn't quite look crisp? Because they had 5.3 yards a carry. And Sam Darnold was pretty well protected throughout the day. He was extremely efficient. They did lose Zach Charbonnet, and that is a key loss. The duo of Charbonnet and Walker has been one of the best in football. It has turned into a a truly explosive backfield, one of the best because of the way that these guys are able to be interchangeable. You can put each of those guys in the exact same situation. It's like the same player on the field. Charbonnet with a bit more boom to him, and Walker with a little bit more of the explosive runs and big play potential. But both of these guys are excellent down by the red zone. And Charbonnet, you're taking off a player with 12 touchdowns in the regular season, and Kenneth Walker had 300 more yards. So there's not a way to say there's a guy that's better. The loss of him is big. I think that's just going to mean a little bit more on Sam Darnold, a little bit more misdirection, getting Smith-Njigba the ball in screens, Rashid Shaheed on end arounds, more misdirection, going sideline to sideline to try and move the ball on this Rams defense, because that front for Los Angeles is still one of the best in football. And Jared Verse had himself a day. Nate Landman flying around everywhere. Byron Young looking excellent. And then Colby Turner, Puka Nacua. This front is phenomenal. And then for Seattle, DeMarcus Lawrence, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, they are as good as it gets. I've said it throughout the season. In my opinion, that Denver front seven is excellent. They're historical with the amount of sacks they've had this year. But over the next couple of years, give me the Seahawks front seven, give me the Texans front seven, and give me the Rams front seven. Because those guys are built, they're younger, they're built to last. The only one seemingly of those entire groups, like you could sort of pick a player, the presence of DeMarcus Lawrence as a veteran guy, you're a little bit curious, how long is he going to play at this type of level? He looks like himself from a couple of years ago, being one of the best edge or defensive end players in the league, and that's what he brings. In Mike Macdonald's defense, he loves guys that aren't just pass rushers, but players that also can defend the run really well. That's exactly what you get in DeMarcus Lawrence. He was the best defensive player for Dallas for at least half a decade. He sort of came over and took over for DeMarcus Ware there for a time. He was an excellent player, and he sort of just took the reins right from him. And then behind that, the play of Thomas, of Ernest Jones, and Wosu, those guys have been amazing. But my favorite player on Seattle, and if you've watched my videos, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe for more content. Look, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Just helps us continue to make better content. But my favorite player that I've talked about here on the show has been Nick Emmanwori. A lot of people are upset that they passed on this guy. And if there's a specific play that sums up the talent, go watch Nick Emmanwori separate from Christian McCaffrey. And it wound up not being a fumble. I believe it was the first play from scrimmage from the 49ers, or it was the second, down 7-0, and it looked like it might have been a fumble from Brock Purdy, and Emmanwori picks the ball up. It looks like he's scoring a touchdown, and Christian McCaffrey is trying to catch him. He's trying to catch up to him, and Emmanwori turns the gap to that, and he fully separates. Now, this is Christian McCaffrey. He is one of the best running backs in the league, and Emmanwori fully created distance between them. I was like, I know this kid is fast. I know he ran a 4.4 in the draft, but isn't he still 6'3", 226 pounds? And he can move like that, and I brought it up. He's like this Bobby Wagner, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, like this hybrid between all of those guys, because he can tackle like Bobby, and he can hit like Cam. He can cover like Earl, rangy center fielder, and then he can lock a guy up in the slot, just like Richard Sherman, just man-on-man ability. Sherman played a bit more on the outside, but you know what I mean here. He's a combination of all of those, and at a 6'3", 226 frame, he does have the physical traits and then the mental behind it. This might turn into the best defensive player in the NFC in 2 or 3 seasons. I really believe that he has that type of ceiling to him. And for the Los Angeles Rams, someone like Jared Verse, who you thought would have a breakout year two. Statistically, it's not there, but you go back and watch him. Jared Verse is present throughout every game that he's played this season, where he has dominant moments. He's just a pure power guy, ran track in high school, so he's got the ability to get you on the edge. Stats might not show that he's a top 10 defensive player in the league, but by my account, he truly is with what he brings. And I think next year's a 13.5, 14 sack, 5-6 forced fumbles type of season. And the way he played against Chicago and throughout the season, he's a force. The Seahawks, they're going to have to be aware of where number 8 is throughout the whole year. And then you've got Byron Young on the other side, who had 12 sacks, I want to say, during the season. So we could go on and on these defenses. I'm sure you're having a lot of fun sort of keeping up with a lot of these, because these are fun players to go over. I mean, the weather's not going to be as cold as it was in Chicago, but it's still not warm. It's going to be low to mid 40s, and that's going to be almost warm compared to where it was. That wind was biting at times. I had a big coat on and feet warmers, hand warmers, all the warmers, and that wind would still bite into you. It might not have looked that windy, like the snow is really coming down. Personally, I sort of warmed up once the snow did come down. I was like, how could you complain or be miserable or be cold when you've got this type of perfect football atmosphere? So once the snow started coming in the pregame, we were good. But occasionally, though, that wind would hit you, so you're not going to have to deal with any of that. And Stafford was affected. It was obvious. I was watching him in pregame warmups, and the ball just wasn't really coming out of his hand the same way. That's the only way I can describe it. The way you typically see the ball straight come out of Stafford's hand, it wasn't the same consistent fastball or precision that I'm used to. He even missed a couple throws in warmups, and then you saw him miss throws. You're shocked at seeing him miss those. So something fully to keep an eye on. If there's one ultimate key, it's these quarterbacks dealing with these injuries. Sam Darnold with his oblique currently, and dealing and working in with that. That was a major storyline going into the San Francisco game. Might not have needed to be talked about as much as it was, because you had to see the guy first step out on the field. He wasn't fully tested. What happens with Sam Darnold, though, if he takes a shot to the midsection, or if he's got to run, is he going to put his body on the line and go get a 3rd down and 4? Because that is a part of his game that's very underrated. I grew up in Los Angeles, still live in the suburbs out here in LA, Hermosa Beach. I'm not a Rams fan, but of course I follow the team just as much as any other, and that's a big part of him. And watching him at USC, that mobility, throw on the run, the big arm that's there, the size, he's big and physical. It was funny, and I saw him in the offseason in Laguna Beach. He told me he doesn't stretch. Now, I don't know the full extent of that, and he kind of said it with a smirk. I was asking him about the keys to his longevity and what he does to try and stay healthy. He's like, yeah, just don't stretch. And I was like, okay, sure. So we're just going to leave that as it is. Does Sam Darnold stretch? You'd imagine he's going to try and do enough to keep himself loose for this. But keep an eye on these quarterbacks. The Stafford hand and accuracy, how it's affected the second half against Carolina. He just wasn't the same guy once after he went 8 for 8. And fully, since he started 8 for 8, hasn't been the same player. Now, the touchdown throw, the game winner, what it wound up being against Carolina, that was a perfect throw. And he had a couple of perfect throws. Like a throw to Adams in overtime to get him past midfield on the final possession to kick the game winner. So there's still some of that where it's like, is he fully affected? And then Darnold, his throw to Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the end zone corner, is he fully affected? Rolling to your left and still making that throw. It's certainly one of those storylines that you're just going to have to follow and see how the game develops. Now, as a matchup goes, the Devon Witherspoon, fully healthy, Puka Nacua matchup is my favorite one. Now, the quarterbacks going head-to-head, sure, that's great, but they're not on the field at the same time. Devon Witherspoon coming out of Illinois was one of the the most hyped cornerbacks, physical, strong, he can run with anybody, tenacious at the line of scrimmage and putting his nose in there. And it seems like all of these DBs are for Seattle. Puka Nacua and him showing up in a couple of big moments on third down, specifically on that drive to put the Rams up 17-10, and then in overtime to get them that first down fully in a field goal range, because it was 3rd and 6 at about the 43. There was no way you're going to try a 60-yard field goal. Now, if it were 4th and 6, you go for it and bam, give the ball right back. Personally, I think they would have gone for it. I don't think that McVay would have been like, okay, we're going to give Caleb Williams another shot. I don't think that there's a shot in heck they would have let that happen. I think he's like, all right, Matthew Stafford, this is the season on the line. Just go get us a first down. Maybe go to Puka Nacua once again if that didn't wind up happening. And thankfully for the Rams fans out there, Puka Nacua wide open, and he's able to get the ball up to the 26 and fully within field goal range at that point. So Nacua and Witherspoon, and then Nacua as he works in and out of the slot, that's where Emmanwori comes to play, because he plays the majority of his snaps up in the box, where he can be a factor in the run game. In Los Angeles, they got the run game going a lot better in the second half, but overall, though, under 4 yards a carry, 3.6 yards a carry, 111 yards overall rushing. That's not going to cut it against Seattle. And by matter in their loss against Seattle, 3.2 a carry, 124 yards on 39 carries. What happened to give the Seahawks a chance? Because the Rams had the ball up 16 in the fourth quarter. They went 3 and out. Seattle, punt return touchdown, and the 2-point conversion. Rams, 3 and out. Seattle, touchdown, 2-point conversion. And another Rams 3 and outs after that. They went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, where they had success on the ground a bit earlier. Their offense disappeared. Stafford, who threw for 457 and 3 touchdowns, and the run game was getting yards on the ground, it disappeared in that fourth quarter. And then in overtime, it was the explosive play to Puka Nacua that got them the touchdown. 225 yards, 2 touchdowns. I had Nacua in fantasy. I think that was my first round of the playoffs. I was fired up for that specifically, but Seattle wound up winning. I had Myers as my kicker throughout the season, so I was very happy and pleased with the performance. Jason Myers was excellent during the year. But that's an area that I'm concerned with Los Angeles, because the front for Seattle, we're all honest here. That's the point of this show, is to bring you unbiased football previews and predictions and break this stuff down. Seattle defense is better than Chicago. And I do believe Seattle can take a page out of what the Bears were doing and say, okay, the explosives will come. Davante, he'll have one over our head on just a 50-50 grab. Perfect throw from Stafford. Nacua, we can mark him in for 9 or 10 grabs for 100 yards and a touchdown right now. Before we even strap up, he's just that type of player. Been the best wide receiver in football right there with JSN. You'll have your guy JSN. We'll take Puka Nacua. Both teams are really happy with their players. And that put to the side, I think that this game's decided on who is that next player up for Los Angeles. Because you can have Nacua have a big day like he did against Seattle. It was other guys like Xavier Smith and Mumfield and Allen and Ferguson, the rookie, with a touchdown. Other guys stepped up. They didn't have Adams in the red zone like they did the first matchup. I think he had 1 catch for 1 yard and a touchdown in their first original matchup. They missed him in the red zone. The first possession of the game, they had to wind up settling for a field goal. So for LA, it's really the run game and what's decided. And if I'm the Seahawks, ultra aggressive, and that's what essentially I wanted to come there, is the Bears are pressuring. They were sending C.J. Gardner-Johnson on blitz. Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker had 2 sacks for the Bears. 3 of their 4 sacks on the day came from the defensive backfield. And what does Seattle do just as well as anybody else? Is get after the quarterback. So the Rams and Seahawks both had 47 sacks. That's tied for the 7th most in football. Points a game, these are two of the best offenses, and it's that symbiotic relationship between a really good defense and good offense, shorter fields, taking the football away. Both of these teams had a bunch of interceptions, and 16 for the Rams, 6th most in football, 18 for Seattle. That was the 18th most. The 30 points a game for the Rams was number 1. The 28.4 was 3rd for Seattle. So you'd imagine it's going to be tough for the teams to move the ball, but also to get stops. That's what put that game over the top. Was we had a 38-37 game, and there was excellent defense played throughout. Really good defense. Darnold, he threw 2 picks, and people were saying it was a choke job until he pulls out the comeback win. And the Rams, they had 3 straight 3-and-outs, and then the missed field goal. 4 possessions of the football, and they don't do anything with them in that 4th quarter. So it's like we had that many points scored, and still yet there was a lot of really good defense played. So I thought personally that's what made that game extra special, because it would be awesome to watch a 47-43 game. But when you grow up watching Big Ten football, hard-nosed stuff, run the football, kicking field goals on 4th and 1 instead of going for it, the new age stuff still is really, really weird to me. But I get it. I get the analytics. But I grew up with defense, and watching a game with points is fun, but I want to see sacks, takeaways, quarterback hits, big plays in the secondary, guys coming up, lowering those shoulder pads and with clean contact, forcing that football out. The way Nate Landman flies around, the way Reek Woolen can lay the wood occasionally. It's been incredible watching these two defenses throughout the season. And if there is a defense you feel more confident about in this, it's going to be Seattle. The way that they dominated the 49ers their last 2 games. But for Los Angeles, you definitely feel a heck of a lot better about yourselves after giving up 31 to Carolina. And then you go up against the Chicago Bears, who had a top 8 statistical offense. You're in their building where they were 6-2 at home overall on the year, and you hold them to 17 points. They get the football into the red zone 2 times in that game where they wound up not putting up points, where you stuff them inside the 5-yard line. First and goal at the 5, the chance to score it with 5 minutes. 3 straight runs, get them to the 2. Darius Williams leapt over, and then Quinten Lake with the big hit. It's 4th and goal. They go to Burden. Landman's there, and they turn them away. They do wind up scoring on the miraculous commit play, but you stuff them away. And then in the first half, they've got the football on the opening possession. 2nd and 4. It's a drop by Odunze, passes a little bit behind him. And then you've got a run play, gains maybe a yard. Bears go for it, 4th down. They pass up on the field goal, and they wind up having Caleb throw an interception. So you get those stops down there. That says a lot for your defense. The snowy conditions, the cold, that's going to be the defense for people that are Bears fans saying, we got a great offense, and we move the football. Who cares if you move the football if you don't score? If we're going to talk about yards a game to decide it, then sure, let's have a different conversation. But if we're talking about real football where the team that has more points at the end of the day wins, then that's all that matters. And Chicago was 9-19 on 3rd down. They were 3-6 on 4th down. And in a playoff game where you have 3 turnovers and you have turnover on downs twice, that's just not a formula where you're going to be winning. 4th and 1, the Bears had it in a big turning point opportunity. 2nd quarter, chance to take a lead, 7-7. 3rd and 1, don't get it. 4th and 1, don't get it. Rams get the football back. So if you're a Seattle fan and you're used to Charbonnet picking up those hard yards, are you so confident that 3rd and 1, you can line up single back, quarterback under center, and hand the football to Kenneth Walker twice to go get a yard? I'd almost rather see Sam Darnold try and sneak it, go get that yard, hard fought to try and move forward, because Los Angeles, they're starting to bring it right now. Defensively, that was a heck of a lot better effort a lot more pride, you could tell, from their defense in getting gashed at times throughout the day. But overall, 4.1 a carry against the number 3 rushing offense. Number 3 or 4, the Bears, they were one of the best throughout the entire year running the ball, and they showed up at the biggest of times, and they did a good job against Carolina limiting the run plays. Only 83 yards and less than 4 yards a carry. It was 3.8, and you were able to limit that offense. And it sort of takes me back to the first Rams-Seahawks matchup. I believe we're going to get a game that's somewhere in between. The turnovers, I imagine we're going to get a far more conservative game plan from both of these. The theme of the playoffs, especially in the late stages of these games, has been the team that makes the mistake and not the incredible plays has been the team that wins. For example, Josh Allen, interception in overtime. Trevor Lawrence, interception trying to tie the game against those Buffalo Bills. The Bears, right? You're driving the length of the field. Caleb Williams probably could have ran the ball 10 times in a row and they could have scored on that final possession, but they try and take a shot downfield when really play it relatively smart. You'd imagine that the Bears and their success with their mobile quarterback, the Rams are just going to have trouble stopping that. They could not get Caleb on the ground the entire day. Why were they going to do it in overtime? So it felt like a missed opportunity for Chicago. LA, they're saying thank you very much. So one game is 38-37. One game's 21-19. I've got to feel like this game's more of that 27-24, 29-26, somewhere in that range where you've got offense, you got a heck of a lot of good defense. Where does special teams come into this? If there's a kicker that I'm confident about, maybe Jason Myers just a tad bit. Mevis has proven and coming up in big spots, so he's not a liability by any means. But special teams for LA, are you kidding me? 2-minute warning, and they have a punt that is only a net of 29 yards, and Chicago set up at midfield on the final possession. That's a chance to put Chicago back. Every yard matters, and they're not able to push them down the field. So if there's an area of special teams, and Seattle already proved it, a Rams missed field goal to take the lead in the fourth quarter, and you had the punt return for a touchdown. So 2 massive, critical plays in that Thursday night game that wound up being in Seattle's favor. So if there's an advantage on special teams, no doubt it's Seattle. There's a team with the advantage of home field. The crowd being bananas. This is going to be one of the best atmospheres in the history of the NFL. Seattle fans despise Rams fans. They hate them. This is in their building. A chance to get to the Super Bowl. They had been waiting for this moment. They hadn't had a home game in front of fans in over half a decade. And then they had it, and they brought it. And now you've got a team that's against a rival. Just think about the moment and what this is for the Seattle Seahawks. A divisional game in the championship round does not get any bigger. It doesn't get any better. And I, in my opinion, think that the winner of this game is going to go on to win the Super Bowl. From the quarterback situation in Denver, it's unfortunate. And with the young quarterback in Drake May, who did not look very good against the Chargers, good defense there in LA. One of the best in football, maybe the best for the Texans. Certainly did not look very good against Houston. Probably struggles against Denver, but pulls and ekes out a win. And then faces either the Rams or the Seahawks. I see the Rams or the Seahawks beating the Patriots if they're able to pull that out. Certainly, I would have them beating a backup quarterback in Jarrett Stidham if that would be the representatives from the AFC in the Super Bowl. For all intents and purposes, I think the winner of this game will win the Super Bowl. That's what is at stake. A matchup that you're going to feel really good in. Whoever wins this will be favored. For Los Angeles, how about a bit of payback from the 2018 Super Bowl against New England? I bet Sean McVay has been waiting since the moment that game ended, putting up only 3 points in front of 150 million people in the Super Bowl and getting payback. He can't do it against Belichick, but he can do it against the organization. So that would be an opportunity. And then for Seattle, it's the same exact thing. Payback for the Super Bowl and not giving the ball to you-know-who. I'm not going to open up that wound, but that's against that team. So I do believe that matchup, and whether it be New England, everybody's going to want them. You would almost feel like America would be rooting against New England at that point. It's like this dynasty is almost trying to come back now. I thought it was over, and here they are again. You'd imagine that Los Angeles, Seattle, that they would be heavily rooted for. But in order to get there, you've got to get through your arch nemesis. And this truly is turning into one of the best rivalries in the National Football League, with this matchup in the playoffs in that COVID year, with the Rams coming up with a shocking win against Seattle. And then this season with these matchups, it feels like Matthew Stafford's got more juice left in the tank. I think he's certainly got 2 more years in him. He's probably going to be the league MVP. How could you, maybe if you win the Super Bowl, you want to go out on top, MVP, Super Bowl champion? Who am I to say that? But then again, it just shows that there's a bit more gas in the tank. And McVay with this offense, this defense, they've got 2 first-round picks. There's a heck of a lot to like. But what about the Seattle Seahawks? Are they still being doubted, underestimated, not talked about enough to be the most complete team in football? To have a quarterback that has been thrown under the bus, he's been dragged through the mud, he has battled, and is one of the best feel-good stories of this century. Because you've got a guy that had everything, right? USC quarterback and a first-round pick, and then he goes and he's miserable at the Jets. And it looks like he might not ever get a chance. But then he has a moment in San Francisco, and Kyle Shanahan works with Brock Purdy, and he finds something in himself. Gets a chance to start in Minnesota with the quarterback whisperer and Kevin O'Connell. Has a heck of a season. Comes up short the first-round guy by, gets blown out by Los Angeles. Goes to Seattle. They invest in him. They believe in him. You don't think that inserts a confidence in someone like Sam Darnold? So Seattle has the first-round bye. They blow that team out. Now they got the Los Angeles Rams, a team that they know as well, if not better than anybody else in the league. They're building a banged-up offensive line. The absence of Rob Havenstein for this Rams O-line has been huge. They were able to protect Stafford in the first game. He was not sacked at SoFi in that 21-19 win. In the second matchup, things were very similar. He wasn't sacked in that game. The run game, again, talked about how that struggled, and then Seattle started to get a lot more pressure on Stafford in the fourth quarter. This game, I think Seattle gets to him a couple of times. I think 3 sacks, maybe even 4 overall. They're going to take a page out of the Bears and say, look, they're going to score 20 no matter what we do. They are just that talented of an offense. But what if we could limit them to 23? Are we able to muster up 3 touchdowns and a field goal and win this game 24-23? Can you get enough pressure on Stafford and generate those negative plays? Because maybe on a 3rd down and 7, there's an explosive play to Nacua down the sideline and they wound up scoring a touchdown. But also 3rd down and 7, you get the right heat on Stafford, you sack him, now they're punting the football. It's a 50-50 chance. I would almost rather send the pressure, know that it's the immediate heat, and rely on your secondary that has played so well this season with one of the best back ends, and this is going to be one of the best back ends, if not the best, in secondaries in the NFL for the next half decade, with all the young Woolen and Emmanwori and Witherspoon. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. I'm going to be breaking it down throughout the entire offseason, giving my praise for the Seahawks, for McDonald, the way that they've built that defense for success, and for success for a while, as long as they stay healthy. That's my formula. Pressure on Stafford, send it, because if you sit there with a 4-man rush, you can get to him, but there is the possibility he can sit in there, navigate his feet. He's still mobile enough to move around and navigate that pocket to find a guy downfield with those tight ends. Expect a lot of 13 personnel, getting Stafford moving the pocket and rolling to the left or right so that you're moving the the throwing position of him, so he's just not sitting in there where Lawrence and Williams and everybody's able to sort of cave in the pocket around him. The nature of the Rams defense and attacking Seattle, I think it's a lot of doubling JSN, and it's like Cooper Kupp, our guy. He's a player that has been so easy to root for and a good dude. He has always played the game the right way. I love wide receivers that are willing to block. You watch Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I'm a big Ohio State fan, and that's all you need to know, right? I know what JSN is for this team, but then you bring Cooper Kupp into that. He can give JSN the tools and go through what makes a complimentary player, and then be a locker room piece, a guy that's won a Super Bowl, a veteran presence, and then he still blocks and still can route people up, bring that physical element. Remember, this guy had, I think, 18, 19 reps coming into the NFL. At the NFL Combine, he was that strong and physical. And then you see Puka Nacua develop into one of the best blocking wide receivers in football. I put a lot of that on Cooper Kupp's shoulders in the way that he's developed, and there's no randomness to Jaxon Smith-Njigba becoming a top 3 wide receiver in the league and Puka Nacua becoming a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. You got to throw probably Jamar Chase into that top 3 conversation right now. We're going to come out with a lot of rankings in the offseason, going through it all as we get ready for the next year, because it's 24/7, 365 with Blitz with Blender. Because, look, there's only 3 games left in the NFL year. Right after into the offseason, you got to be right up and start getting ready for the NFL draft. And the Rams have 2 first-round picks. Seattle, they're going to try and continue to build and fill in whatever holes that might come up. Personally, Seattle, in the way I look at them, I see them winning this game. When you talk about the crowd, the special teams impact that there is, the ability for this defense to fly around the way they do. They have a better secondary than the Rams. And I'm not sleeping on Forbes, who is expected to be back. The news out of there from McVay said he was banged up with that shoulder, but he believes it's not going to keep him out on Sunday. Again, no Havenstein, and the Rams mixing and moving guys around with their offensive line. It just did not look good against Chicago. And that's a similar type of athletic profile with a guy like Kyler Gordon and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, with the way that they stack up with a lot of nickel defense, and the Seahawks doing a lot of that the same, and their base looking like nickel and having all of that speed, and those guys are physical, and bringing up Emmanwori into the box. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks in this one. I know that's going to be surprising to a lot of people. It's unbelievably tough. It's a coin flip. But when you come down to a coin flip, I saw the way that Stafford was impacted last week from pressure. And Seattle gets pressure on the quarterback. And from the crowd. And it was loud. It was so loud there in Soldier Field. Seattle's going to be louder. I know if you're a Bears fan watching this, you're going to say, nah, look. No place in football is louder than Lumen Field. It doesn't get any louder than the 12th man and the noise that they make. Now, SoFi Stadium's a sound machine. You get in that building, your ears are going to be ringing for a day or two. It's a lot of the natural sound, and it's loud, the dome environment, and then plus the music that they play in with the Rams house and all of that PA announcer going crazy. But Seattle that's College Station. It sounds like there's 110,000 people in that building when there's 67,000 people that they pack in there. I'm going to take the Seahawks. Believe that Sam Darnold has an efficient game. Something like 21 of 37. Not quite the completion percentage, but 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Doesn't make enough bad plays, and he's able to pull his team forward enough to come out with the victory. I see Seattle stopping that Rams run game. If they're able to do that, they'll make the Rams one-dimensional on second down, which is where LA was last week. I had a lot of confidence that LA would move the ball better and like that first possession. And then the offense. They put up 3 points for the next 40, 35, 30-ish minutes of the game. Only put up 3 points up on that board, and this is a better defense in every sense of it. From the perspective of Darnold, 22 of 34 in the first matchup, 29 of 44. So the completion percentage has been fine. He's gotten the completions. It's just about not having the big turnover. And if you're a Rams fan, you're saying, what about our pressure? What about our guys? There's more faith from my side with Seattle and their offensive line that is overall healthier than what the Rams have in their production. And I'm just going to go with the total defense of the Seahawks. I think this is the second best defense in football behind what the Texans have. So the best defense left in the postseason. I even believe that they're better than Denver just because the overall units in all three levels. You want to say Denver's a better D with their pass rush? Sure. But again, I talked about the defense in their sense. Like guys like Cooper and Benito, they're excellent. Hufanga and Greenlaw, Surtain, Moss. That's a great defense for Denver. You can have them. But this Seattle team, the way that they've played, there's something about them that is tangible. Their quarterback to root for in a game like this, I would imagine that Matthew Stafford has a couple of throws here that there may be one that could go the other direction. Because in that game against the Bears, there were a couple that were close. We're talking about 5 throws. One specifically right over Kyler Gordon's head in the slot where it's like, that's close. Or a tip. There were 5 plays. It almost felt like he was trying to give Chicago one to fully take control. Like he was putting the ball in some precarious spots against the Seattle team. Sometimes the ball bounces different direction, getting sacked. And the ball wound up being picked up by Kyren Williams, headsy play. Sacked, and then the ball bounces right up to him. Sometimes the ball just bounces your direction, and they've got a couple of drops. For Seattle, hard to imagine that happens once again. So I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to win this game by a score of 27-24 and advance to the Super Bowl. This is the game I have been sort of getting ready to come out with and go over. There's an element to this one where there's these great defenses, but the offenses and the way that they produce as well. Seattle, for all that they do defensively, 351 yards a game, 7th best in football. The Rams, number 1 in everything. So when you have that type of complete team, it just feels like, now you could be a fan of these other teams like I've talked about, but at the end of the day, someone like me, I'm a football fan. I truly believe the best team deserves to win. The team that is the better product, doesn't turn the ball over, good in short yardage, takes the ball away. Special teams, there's no holes. And that's a part of Seattle. I've seen less holes on this team. Stafford is the better quarterback. Seahawks fans are not doubting that. They know Stafford's better. But in terms of a complete nature, complementary, not having holes on the team, his worst performances have been against the Rams. If he can put that together and keep his composure and do just good enough, doesn't have to be a hero. Doesn't have to be Caleb Williams. Doesn't have to be Matthew Stafford to win this game. Whereas the Rams, there have been holes that have come up throughout this season, and they were all exemplified this past Sunday night. Or they had them in a box, they were sealing it, and they just forgot to put that second seal. And it broke open, found themselves with the win. I know Seahawks fans would far rather have played Chicago than Los Angeles and feeling like they'd have the confidence, but now you got LA. You wanted LA as a divisional rival, or you're going to get LA. And that'll be the pick, 27-24. And wow, I'd be shocked if this isn't a good game. Feels like it would be very tough for LA to pull away. Seattle the other direction. It just feels like we're going to get a very good football game, and I think a lot of us are hoping for that. So with that, I will be done with breaking down NFC straight-up matchups because this is the last one of the season. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's sad for me that I no longer will be breaking down a Rams game or a Seahawks game. One of these two teams, this is the last preview prediction video of the season. Thank you so much for all the support. These have been some of the best videos of the season. The engagement has been incredible with the Rams, with the Seahawks. I appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart. It has been amazing to interact, engage, to talk through all of this. Didn't do quite enough of a job getting down there in the comments as I would have liked. We're going to try and do a better job at that going forward here. And at the end of the day, I got to send this message because I know that this past week was a difficult one for not Seattle fans, but the other direction. Find a way to enjoy this game. I know I certainly did at that game in the snow, cold, and it was hard to not enjoy yourself and to be grateful for having playoff football and those types of elements. So if you're a Rams fan, find a way to enjoy this. Enjoy a close game in the NFC Championship because you haven't been in the NFC Championship in 4 years. Or if you're a Seahawks fan, it's been so long since you've been in a position like this. It's been a decade. So find a way to enjoy this game and the moments. If you're going to the game, be loud, be able to let everyone hear it through that television. I know I don't even have to say that because it's going to be done, but find a way to enjoy the nervousness. That energy is going to happen. But if you're not able to enjoy this game you love, it's like, why do you wind up watching it and torturing yourself, putting yourself through all these games if at the end of the day you're not happy watching your favorite team play? So with that note, that'll be the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed again to Blitz with Blender, please do so. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. Just helps me build this channel out, continue to make more content, and get better at this. We're not even close to a finished product in as good a content that I can be making, and I'm going to continue to do my very best to get better every day to make better stuff for you. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see everybody next time. Good luck this week.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blunder.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.